We're out for a little walk across some fields and through some woods near Cerne today. There's been a bit of rain recently. We've had a very dry summer, but there has been a bit of heavy rain about a week or two ago, over the last couple of weeks, and I'm hoping that it might have just about been enough to get some mushrooms up. If not, we're just going to have a nice walk. I mean, maybe we'll pick some blackberries. The blackberries are starting already. A field of barley here. Looks about ready to harvest. In fact, it's a field of barley, and you can see on the edge of the field here there's oats. So previous crop presumably was oats surviving in the margins. Very common to find that actually on the edge of arable fields. You find remnants of previous crops where seeds have been dropped and a previous crop is growing. I will just stray briefly off the path so I can show you that. Got a little speedwell down here. How about that? Blue flowers. So yeah, that's the main crop, barley. The difference between barley and wheat is barley has these whiskers. This is oats. In fact, the seeds have fallen on most of them, I think. Yeah, the groats have fallen out. But yeah, on the edge of on the margin of the field, there are oats. And I would say this field here has had onions in it, because I can see the scapes of onions sticking up. Onions or leeks. And maybe it just wasn't worth harvesting the whole crop, or maybe they didn't get it all, missed a few onions or leeks or whatever. But those sticks you can see sticking up there are the flower stalks or scapes of onions, or something related to onions. Elderberries will not be long. The stalks are turning red now on the elderberries. That means the fruits will not be long before they're ripened. They're a bit sparse this year because it's been such a dry summer, but there'll always be some fruit around, so we'll come out and pick elderberries a bit later when they're ripe. There are a few blackberries around. These aren't the best blackberries I've seen, but there are some early blackberries this year. So despite the dry season, if you've got a blackberry bush that's got its roots down deep, it'll produce fruit, and actually the warm, dry weather will mean early fruiting. So we've had blackberries since about the middle of July in some places, and some really nice ones. Yeah, here's some better ones. Look at those. I think those are worth a pick. And so I'm going to do the thing I do. This is how I think is the best way to appreciate fresh blackberries, or the real flavour of fresh blackberries, is to pick a small handful like this, basically as many as will fit in your fist, like that. Just give them a quick look at, make sure there's no large invertebrates crawling on them. And then, and as I say, this is my favourite way to enjoy fresh blackberries, is when you do that, when you shove as many as you can fit in your mouth, you experience the blackberry aroma and flavour in a way you don't get any other way. I've yet to persuade Jenny to try this trick. She's got more manners than me. But yeah, a lot of them are kind of got quite sparse fruits. And this may be because they didn't get very well pollinated. It might just be the variety. It does look like some of these might have actually been crossed with dewberry, which is a different species related, that has fruits with fewer drupelets. The little blobs here are called drupelets because they're like tiny plums. So a plum is a drupe. It's a fruit with a single sort of woody, stony seed inside. And so blackberries aren't actually berries, they are a cluster of drupelets. A compound fruit, a cluster of drupelets. So each one of these blackberry seeds, oh there's so many flies, each one of these blackberry fruits contains a single woody seed. So yeah, they are little drupes or drupelets. So yeah, blackberries aren't actual berries. You found a stone! Oh, congratulations! Oh gosh, I'm getting really bothered by flies here. It also seems to be quite a good year for hazelnuts. So these are hazelnuts here, they're not ripe yet. Squirrels will eat them, so squirrels have knocked a few of them off the tree. But I am seeing a lot of hazelnuts on the trees. So I think it's like a, I don't know if hazels have a mast year thing. I think somebody told me they did. A bit like oak trees produce a bumper crop of acorns. So hazels produce a bumper crop of nuts every few years. So many of them that the squirrels won't be able to eat them all. And it's not just squirrels, it's jays and other animals as well. So lots and lots of hazelnuts. Too many for the things that eat hazelnuts to eat, and so they hide them. So the squirrels will go and cache them all over the place, and not all of those squirrels will survive the winter. Not all of those squirrels will remember where all of their caches were, and so the hazelnuts get a kind of free planting service. And also there's too many nuts for them to eat, for the squirrels to eat, so it almost guarantees that some of them will make it through and survive to become the next generation of trees. So yeah, seeing a good amount of hazelnuts on these trees. Oh, superb view from up here. I never really know how well these things come across on camera, but we're looking across a lovely big deep valley, not the Cerne Valley, this is the next one over, I think. So I don't know, if I can find out what valley this is called, I'll put it on the screen. There's a raven up there. So we've heard ravens, and we saw a tussle between a raven and a buzzard. A buzzard was being mobbed by a raven, probably to drive it away from, well, it's a bit late in the year for there to be chicks in a nest for ravens, but you never know. It might just be that the raven was bullying the bird of prey because that's what they do. Now, I don't know that we're actually going to find any mushrooms today, it just still does seem a bit dry. I am on the lookout though, because the other day I was walking on a path very much like this one actually. So just a dirt path through chalk downland where the flints that are in the chalk are exposed. And I mean, a lot of these stones you're seeing on the path here are flints, and that's a flint. And flints are composed of the silica remains of sponges and other marine organisms from probably the Cretaceous period or perhaps the Jurassic. And so you sometimes find flint fossils. Come here.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So I can see deer running down there through the field, so Eva's got to go on the lead because she will chase them. Sorry, Eva. So some of the flints that you find are the fossils, and one of the really common fossils you can find in flint is echinoids, sea urchins. And the other day I was walking along a path just like this one, with all the flints coming up out the ground like they are here, and I spotted a perfect heart urchin echinoid. I've got it at home, I'll put a picture of it on the screen here. Right, I don't know if we can get a sight of those deer, they're probably long gone by now. I'm just going to go and stick my head around this corner and see if we can see them. I think they were roe deer. Yeah, they're down there somewhere, but they're long gone.
Long gone.
Oh yeah, she'll track them and chase them, so she's got to stay on the lead now. Sorry, Eva. Just the way it goes. Well, there is a fungus. Interesting, a bracket fungus that's growing out of the top of a cut ash tree. I'm not even sure what that is. It's probably some species of Ganoderma, perhaps. I don't know. Don't know what that is, but it's not going to be something that we would want to pick and eat anyway. But there we go. So that's an unusual way to find a fungus growing. It's normally a bracket like that would grow out of the side of the trunk of a tree, but where it's been cut and the cut is not straight, the cut is not horizontal, the bracket is growing out of the top of it. Here's the kind of berry you don't want to pick. So I've seen a lot of posts on Reddit with people asking, what's this? This is the cluster of fruits from wild arum. Lords and ladies, Arum maculatum. So it's a species of arum that's very, very common in damp woodlands and shady woodlands. That is the fruit cluster from it, not edible to humans. Leave that one for the birds. These, however, these are red currant bushes. I think we're too late. Well, actually, no, they're not the gooseberries, because they're thorny. So we may not be too late. But I don't see any fruit on there. But yeah, that's a ribes. I thought it was red currants, but it's actually really thorny, so it's obviously gooseberries. There's more of it down there, but I don't see a single gooseberry. Sadly, that's a shame. Helicopter. So this is where we saw the deer run through. Now it's interesting, there's lots of demolition brick rubble in the path here, and also this bit here does make me think this might have been the entrance to a stately home, and there might have been a little lodge or something down the bottom of this track. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that the track is made up of is broken stone and concrete and bricks. A Thistle brand brick, how about that? Let's see if we can find some interesting information about the Thistle brickworks. So yeah, this just tree-lined avenue. These trees are sycamores, and judging from their size, I would say, well, the bigger ones are at least 100 years old, which is not that old for this kind of a planting, but of course these could have been replacements. But yeah, it just feels like this might have been the entrance to some stately home or something like that. There is something over here. Are these chunks of stone? Are these? A big chunk of stone there for something, and a piece of a wall. So actually several pieces of wall, probably not in their original situ, but yes, perhaps there was a estate wall or something here at some point. Or maybe these are, yeah, I don't think they're where they were before, and they're not actually, the bricks are not that old, at least the ones that were on the top of the wall there are not that old. Anyway, yeah, I suspect this might have been the west entrance, the west lodge to some stately home at some point. Now another field of grain here, and this looks like wheat to me, so I'm just going to go over and have a look, and we'll just have a look and I'll show you what I mean about the difference between wheat and barley. Yeah, this is wheat. There's corn poppy there. But yeah, this is wheat, because it doesn't have those whiskers on it that we saw on the barley earlier. We'll just stop to look at this fungus because it's impressive. So that's an artist fungus or something related to it. That is a species of Ganoderma, and look at the size of it. So that's my hand span. So that thing has got to be like 50 centimeters across maybe 40 from front to back. There's a smaller one of them over there. And yeah, this is called artist fungus. Underneath, the surface is white, and if you scratch it, it immediately turns sort of blue-black, as if you've written on it with ink. I think that's why it's called artist fungus, because you can actually draw pictures on the underside, on the spore-bearing surface. I'm not going to do that today. So that's where we walked up there, down through these woods and back round. Now we've got to go up another hill. We're less than halfway on our little walk today. But it's quite nice here. There's a fair bit of shade underneath this sycamore tree. About half the road is in shade. Things to see here. One is a little gap through the fence here. This is a deer run. So deer have been charging through the hedge here. This is probably one of their habitual routes. And not quite so fun to look at. Look at the hillside over there. See, the stems of those trees are all bare. Those are ash trees. That's ash dieback. I know I've spoken about this a lot before, but these trees are dying, and they are infected by a fungal disease called ash dieback that just over time kills the trees. A few ash trees are resistant to it, apparently. It's looking like there are resistant subspecies or varieties, so maybe those will recolonize and be resistant. But you can see something else has been planted on this hillside here, so they've replanted with presumably some other forest tree. But we're really going to miss the ash trees, because it's one of the main large trees in woodlands here. So we've got sycamore, so I'm underneath a sycamore, and when I say sycamore, this is a species of maple. It's Acer pseudoplatanus, so it's a broadleaf maple, but it's called sycamore. It's got the common name sycamore. A bit of a confusing one there, because the trees we call plane trees here are also called sycamores in some parts of the world. Anyway, so sycamore is a tree that's quite common here and can grow quite big. We've got some big oaks and we've got some other big forest trees, but ash is by far the predominant forest species here in Dorset, and we're really going to miss it. I mean, here's another one. It's a great big ash tree, and you can just see it's dying. And of course, it's not just us that's going to miss the ash trees, it's the wildlife. So, you know, all of these, look at them all of those trees where you can see the bare white trunks are ash trees that are in trouble. And that's all nesting sites for birds. That's all habitats for insects that the birds feed on. This is Dorset is not a heavily wooded county in the first place, but a lot of the woodland here is ash. Wow, look at that. We've got ripe, or nearly ripe, elderberries here already. So, next few weeks or so, I'm going to be out picking elderberries. I've got some lovely blackberries. I still need to find some damsons this year to make my purple jam. So damson, elderberry and blackberry, really good combination for making purple jam. So we're going to go back to Upcerne Wood up here. We'll look at another crop while we're here. This crop here is field beans, closely related to broad beans, which you might know as fava beans. And there we go, the dry pods of the field bean. I'm not going to open that because it's not my crop, but these will be harvested and threshed, and then the dry beans will be used as cattle fodder. I would say they are about at the peak of condition for harvesting right now. But I'm not a farmer, so don't listen to me. But again, and I almost missed it, you can see these grasses that are standing up tall in the middle of this crop of field beans. That's oats again. Not wild oats, that's cultivated oats. So that has been a previous crop in this field. And when they gathered the oats, they must have dropped a few grains, or more than a few. And that's why that's there. What have we got here? Some sort of poultry, I think. Pheasants, partridges. Never seen quite so many of those in one place before. There they go. Either young pheasants, I think they must be young because there's so many of them together, but yeah, probably young pheasant, I think. Looking very much like Roadrunner. Meep meep. Always running away from you. They just need to run into the hedge and stay there, and they'd be quite safe from me, but they always just seem to run away along the track. Now there is some rather magnificent goosefoot here. Not quite sure which species of goosefoot this is, but this is a good edible. So actually we might pick some of this today. Take that home. One of my favourite ways to cook this is to pick these immature seed heads like this, maybe about that much of the stalk, dip it in a light batter and fry it kind of tempura style. It's a really good edible. It's related to spinach, really tasty. Not good if you've got kidney stones or anything like that, if you've got problems which might be exacerbated by oxalic acid, because it does have oxalates in it, but it's only, you know, not much more than spinach or any other of its relatives. This down here is pineapple weed, and this one's edible as well. Related to chamomile. It's like a chamomile with no petals, or they're not petals, they are ray florets, because it's a composite, it's a Asteraceae. But so yeah, it's a that is the flower. It's got no white pseudo petals, but the whole plant has an aroma of pineapple, which I'm just going to verify by picking a bit and crushing it and having a sniff. Yep, can confirm that smells quite pineapple-y, and it's edible, and it can be used to make a kind of fake pineapple flavouring. So I can see a buzzard just circling down there, and is that another one going over? Yes it is, that's a buzzard. So they've met each other. That presumably is well, maybe it's a pair. They're circling around each other. I'm not sure if you can even see what I'm describing against the background of the trees. It's often easier to see things with the naked eye here than it is with the camera. Perhaps if they fly back up again and we see them against the sky, but I don't know that they're going to do that. No, they've gone. They're going over the ridge now. There we go. Just up above the trees. That is a buzzard. It's gone over the ridge now. I thought we might have a little bit more shade than this, but on the map this is a more wooded trail than it is in reality. Unfortunately, that's just, again, the ash dieback. Eva tends to dash ahead and wait in the shade of the trees. She's got a bit of sense. You been pestered by flies as well, baby? I feel your pain. This is creeping thistle here, making its fluffy seeds that will be dispersed by the wind. Here's a wayside plant worth talking about. This is wild marjoram, Oreganum vulgare. This is oregano, so exactly the same species as is called oregano, but here it's called wild marjoram. Marjoram is a garden herb, Oreganum officinale, I think, and this is being very much enjoyed by honeybees here, so somebody must have their hives out, because I'm seeing, well, actually there is an assortment. There's a bumblebee down here somewhere. There are lots of little meadow brown butterflies, but I'm seeing a fair few. That's actually a bee fly, but I'm also seeing quite a lot of honeybees. I think we will pick a few leaves of this wild marjoram or oregano, and we'll get that home And we'll do a little bit of cooking, I think, using this wild herb. But yeah, just to, let's have a sniff of it while we're here. Oh yeah, lovely, savoury, aromatic herb. So yeah, we'll just pick a few little sprigs of that and get that home. So it looks like now we have to trek up quite a steep hill before we head back. Not actually looking very much forward to that. So yeah, actually about as steep a track as you could really walk up without steps, I would say. So in case that's not very obvious, what I'll do, I'll turn the camera. So that is the natural angle of the track here. So like that. So we're not quite out the top, but there's the view. And it's a lovely view. So just to recap, in fact I'll freeze the frame and I'll show you where we walked. So we walked along the top ridge, past that line of trees there, and then all the way back up the bottom of this valley and up the hill. So we need now to walk along the side of this field, and again this is an arable field here, but look how much flint is in this soil here. Must be very poor soil up on top here. It's 50% stones. It doesn't look like there's a crop in here at the moment, although I can see a few things that might be a remnant of a rapeseed perhaps. There's what looks like wheat there. Some little bits and pieces of wheat, but it does look like this field is fallow at the moment. However, there are things like this. This is a fat hen of one of the goosefoots, and again edible. There's some really nice goosefoot in this field actually. I'm going to pick some, we'll take it home. We will include that in our little bit of cooking that we do. Another deer up there. Eva has already spotted it. I know you'd love to go and run with it, wouldn't you? I love running with those guys. Well, it's seen us, and now there it goes. Yeah, the deer knows what's best for it. So back up at the top of the ridge now, you can see a little glimpse down there of where we walked. So we walked down through the middle of that valley, just the other side of this dark coloured field. In fact, that's where the track went onto the road, and where that vehicle's driving actually. So I think we must have walked 3-4 miles today, and it's been a nice walk. I have never been bothered by flies as much as I have been today. They just won't leave me alone. There are just a lot of flies about, and whatever they're not bothering Jenny at all, so I think it's the shower gel I used this morning must be attracting them. Perhaps I shouldn't have used rotting flesh shower gel. Anyway, normally end of July I would not recommend picking stinging nettles, because normally they're all like this. They're tall, they're ragged, the leaves will be absolutely chock full of oxalate crystals, which are not good for you. So at the end of July, if you get tall nettles like this, they're just not worth picking to eat. However, if you can find a spot that's been cut down like this has been cut for hay, this field, and on the edge here the nettles are all regrowing, and this is basically springtime again for these nettles, so we could pick these. They will be bristling with stings because the young growth on nettles always is. So we could pick some nettles for the table, but I'm not going to today because I've got other things I want to put in the thing we're going to cook. So yeah, I suppose all the flying insects, it's good to see so many flying insects about. I mean, there's a huge variety of flies and butterflies, and just seen a very strange looking crane fly type of thing just down here. If it comes back out, we'll have a look at it. But I have never been as harassed by flies, biting flies, not just mosquitoes, these are horse flies and things. I've never been so bothered by them as I have been today. I don't know if it's just a confluence of the weather and the conditions, but I mean it could be, yes, because we've had wet weather after a prolonged dry spell, so perhaps all the flies are just taking the opportunity to breed when there's a bit of moisture about. Anyway, yeah, never been quite so bitten by flies as I have been today. I imagine I'm going to look quite bumpy tomorrow. Anyway, tomorrow's another day. Not so bad in the shade though. So in the shade here, well, let's just have a look at the trees here. So this is an oak tree. This is English oak. That's a sycamore tree there. Another oak up above us here. Mostly oaks and sycamore. And that's ash up there, still doing okay. Beautiful old multi-stemmed oak here. Here in this shady spot we've got chickweed. Lots of it actually. So there's plenty of chickweed here. This is another really good edible. You can recognise chickweed because it has these tiny little white flowers like that on it. They're barely flowers at all, little starry flowers, and if you look at the stems of chickweed, they have a line of hairs running up one side. I'll see if I can get a good picture of that. But yeah, that's chickweed, and that we could pick and put in the thing we're going to cook today, but I don't think I'll bother. But that's a good edible. What a stupendous view. Out across the Cerne Valley. Well, there's a path here that takes us to the edge of the field, so let's go and get out from under the canopy of trees here and appreciate the view across a field of barley. Now there is a brewery in Cerne Abbas, so this barley here may eventually be used for making beer at Cerne Abbas Brewery just down the road. I've got a bottle of their beer back at home, so perhaps I'll do a tasting of that in this video as well. Now, I did wonder if this is an old railway track we're walking along here, because it's just got that feel to it. And here's a plant which you sometimes do find on the margins of old railway tracks. This is Rosebay Willow Herb. Beautiful roadside and trackside plant, also known as bombweed or fireweed. This grows on disturbed soil. It's very common to find this growing, oh blooming flies. It's very common to find this growing on sites where there has been disturbance, demolition, those sorts of things. Rosebay Willow Herb. Somebody on the Atomic Shrimp Discord server made a cordial out of the flowers of these one year, and it did look really good. It looked kind of like cranberry juice. Okay, all downhill from here, and so we picked some lovely goosefoot and some wild marjoram or oregano. Let's get those two things back to Shrimp HQ and see what we can make with them. This is what I foraged, mostly goosefoot. So I'm calling it goosefoot because this is a variety of different plants in the same family. In the family Chenopodium, which is in the amaranth family, and they are collectively known as goosefoot. Some of the common names for species in this family are things like Good King Henry, Fat Hen, Lamb's Quarters. I can't remember some of the others, but they've got a variety of common names. But they are Chenopodium species. They're quite difficult sometimes to tell apart. I've got several different species in here. Let's see if I can find a different one. There's a possibly oak-leafed goosefoot. Now, why have I not identified these precisely? Well, because you can identify the genus Chenopodium, because they have this kind of weird mealiness to the underside of the leaves. It almost feels like there's sand on them. It's not sand. It's little crystalline structures, actually. We might try and get a bit of microscope footage of that. But anyway, so I'm very confident that what I've got here is that genus. It is Chenopodium. It doesn't matter which species, because all of the species in that genus are edible. I'm going to give these a wash now. The main reason to be washing this is it's quite a low-growing plant, and so there will be some soil splash and grit on the leaves. So I'm going to employ a two-stage washing process, which is where we give it a good shake and get everything wet like that. And then I'll leave that for 5 minutes or so. Then I'll give it another rinse. That first rinse will loosen up any dirt that's adhering to the leaves, and then I can wash it off later. And then the other thing I picked was this wild marjoram. And all I'm going to do with this is just separate the leaves from the woody stalks. I think I might have the flower buds as well. I was thinking this would be really nice on a pizza, and I'm sure it would. But I'm not going to make a pizza today. I'm going to make a kind of savoury version of that self-organising custard tart that I made a couple of weeks ago. So this is the quiche version of that.
we're going to try to make a quiche that requires no blind baking, and just where you put all of the ingredients in together and you end up with some sort of savoury egg tart. Anyway, I'm going to chop this quite finely because I want the flavour to come right out of it. The smell coming off of here is fantastic. It's quite perfumed. It's reminiscent of lavender. Of course it's related to lavender, but at this stage it is a bit perfumey, if that makes sense. But I think as it cooks it will become a lot more savoury. So that's my chopped oregano. So that's one of my ingredients. So I've got most of my ingredients here laid out. I'll talk about everything as we get to it. I've just weighed out about 30 grams of rice flour. Now I'm using rice flour because it'll sink, and that's what I want. I want the flour that I put in the mixture to sink to the bottom and form almost a crust. But the first thing I need to do is I'm going to butter this dish. So that this is a 500ml 8-inch quiche dish. So it's about 20 something centimetres. And I'm going to butter this quite generously. So just smash the butter into the dish like this. Now it is quite a warm day, so this butter, if I'm not careful, will melt and run away. And I don't want that to happen. I want it to actually stick on the dish here, because this is hopefully going to stay in place long enough that as the thing starts to bake, it won't stick to the dish. Anyway, that's the theory. I'll put this in the fridge while I'm assembling everything else. That butter will just have a chance to set back up again. And yeah, as I say, hopefully it'll stay in place. I will just give this a little dust with the flour. So that buttered and floured flan case is going to go in the fridge for just 10 minutes. So a couple more little bits of prep. I've got this chorizo. I think this is actually a chorizo that's intended to be sliced and served as part of a cold meat platter, but there's no reason you can't cook with it. And so what I'm going to do with this is cut some thin-ish slices. I suppose I should weigh that. 42 grams. Let's give it another slice and we'll call it 50 grams. So about 50 grams of chorizo, and I'm going to cut that into little, well, essentially lardons. So I cut it one way like that, and then cut it the other way into little squares. So I'm choosing all of my ingredients here based on whether they'll sink or float. I'm expecting that this will kind of sit somewhere in the middle of the mixture. Anyway, I've got my double washed goosefoot back now, and I'm going to chop this up. And again, I'm just going to make sure I'm going to get rid of any stalks, because those might just be a little bit fibrous. It shouldn't matter too much if I'm chopping it up. It's all edible, but I might as well, since it's rather nice stuff, I'm just going to take off the leafy bits. Not all of them will need that kind of preparation. We've got some seeds there as well. Those are nice. And I'm going to chop this quite small, because this has got to be cooked inside this quiche, and I definitely don't want it to come out stringy. Now, if you don't have access to fresh goosefoot, or you're not confident to forage it, and that's fine. If you don't feel confident, don't forage. Don't forage. And also, if you are confident but also you don't know what you're doing, don't forage. You don't just need to be confident, you need to be right. Anyway, that's my goosefoot. If you don't have access to goosefoot, you could just use fresh spinach or chard or one of those sorts of leafy vegetables. So I know that my quiche dish is 600 ml to the very brim. So we're going to make about 500 or 550 ml of filling to go in there, because it will puff up when it's cooked. So 3 eggs, which camera wasn't rolling, you know the deal. So 3 eggs, which I'm going to beat. Then in with basically all of my other ingredients. So my oregano. I've got some crispy fried onions here, just about 25 grams of crispy fried onions. I'm banking on those floating. Single cream. This is about 20% fat. We'll have about 100 ml. We're going to have then the chorizo, the flour. I've got some Grana Padano hard Italian cheese. I'm going to grate in maybe about 50 grams of this cheese. This is quite a salty cheese, so we won't be adding additional salt to the mix, but we are going to add nutmeg, because nutmeg plus spinachy leaves plus cheese, good combination. So we'll have a good grind of fresh nutmeg, maybe about 1/4 teaspoonful in there. We're going to have some black pepper. We're going to have all of those leaves. So that's all my goosefoot. And at the moment it looks like there's too much in there because there's just not enough liquid in here. So let's get some milk. Maybe 100 ml of milk. And we need to get this all mixed down together, and then we'll see where it comes to on the jug. I reckon that's about right, but I think a tiny bit more milk wouldn't hurt, just to loosen it up a bit. It's looking pretty good, but let me just check the level now. No, actually we could do with a bit more liquid. And the more liquid the contents, obviously if we go too far it won't set, but the liquid nature of the contents here will help us just stratify, and for the, especially the flour, to settle out. Okay, time to assemble the dish, and it is as simple as dump it in there and just give it a little jiggle around inside the dish there. That's about the right volume. Now, here's a trick I learned from Dan Hurd, gold prospecting. I'm just going to give it a little jiggle like that to stratify the ingredients. So I want the heavier ingredients to settle out and the lighter ones to float up. I don't know if it'll make any difference. Anyway, there we go. Right, that's now got to go in the oven, 180 degrees Celsius fan, which is these numbers, for probably 35 minutes. It will cook from the outside inwards. When it's golden, brown and souffled in the middle, it's done. Right, so there we are. That's done. Yeah, so it'll cook from the outside in. You end up with a depression in the middle, sort of puffs up around the edges. And when that puffiness gets to the middle, it's done. So now that needs to cool down. We'll have some of this for dinner with some chips and salad, I think. Right, that has cooled down now. I am just going to see if it needs any loosening up around the edge here. Let's cut it into, I think, maybe 6. Now, bear in mind, this is a crustless quiche, I suppose, but a crustless quiche is an omelette. So this is really just an omelette in a dish. I don't think the first piece is going to come out so cleanly. Not too bad. And so yeah, it has actually got a little bit of a crust on the bottom there. Second slice will hopefully come out with a bit more grace. There we go. And so yeah, it would be a spinach quiche if that was spinach, and if it was a quiche. Just to finish plating that up now, Waldorf adjacent salad. So this is carrots, celery, lettuce, radishes, apple, walnuts, with a yogurt and mayonnaise dressing. And then some very lovely crispy chips. A few of my little homegrown berry tomatoes. So there we go, that's the pie. I appreciate that looks a bit weird, but I think that's going to taste good. Okay, right, well, dig in and tell me what you think of the... This is a self-assembling quiche.
Yeah, that's really nice, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So the goosefoot in there is just like spinach. And I can taste the marjoram as well. Can you taste the marjoram?
Can you taste herbs?
We picked that from the hedgerow.
Oh yes.
I'm going to have some ketchup for my chips and some mayonnaise, but not mixed together. Ketchup and mayonnaise, like that. Very good. So this is a beer from just up the road from where we were, from the Cerne Brewery. This is Gurt, coconut and rum stout. And that's a picture of the Cerne giant on the front of the bottle there, which is the big chalk hill figure that's at Cerne. So this is the bottle of stout I bought at the Dorset Spring Show. Gurt Coconut and Rum Stout. And it is 6.7% ABV. To the eye, well, deep red-black with a slight creamy head. To the nose, you can smell the coconuts. To taste, quite a sweet stout. Malt, coconuts and rum. I like that. I'm a bit of a fan of these beers with lots of weird stuff in them. Anyway, so there we go. That was our walk up Cerne, a little bit of foraging, and our homemade weird crustless quiche with goosefoot and wild marjoram. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.